Hi, we're here with Christina Moretta, who is a photo curator here at the San Francisco Library. And we're just going to ask her a few questions about kind of the history and preserving information and all sorts of interesting things about the library. We're excited to be here with you today. And the first question we have is, what kind of materials do you archive in this section of the library?
Okay, so we are the archives for the city and county of San Francisco. So, what that means is anything that the city creates, we keep. So, they can't dump it, it goes to us, and we archive it. So, we collect documents, papers meaning like correspondence, reports, stuff like that, photographs. And then any types of recordings, whether they're like video or film or that type of thing. And our collection spans from kind of the Alcalde records when we used to be part of Mexico. Yeah, little known fact. And to today or yesterday. I don't think I archived anything yet from today, so probably yesterday.
Wow. So when you say today or yesterday, do you mean that like from newspapers and sorts of things that are coming out right now, you immediately archive that so that you have a complete history, or what's more on that process?
Yes. So we are archiving whatever the city creates. So like that could be email correspondence or agendas for meetings or minutes or that type of thing or reports and of course web pages as well.
All right, that's awesome. And why do you think it's important to preserve or archive these materials?
Well, if we want to kind of know relearn some of our mistakes possibly or successes from the past, it's a good way. We need to archive those materials so folks can explore that and kind of have conversations as well as writing books and creating documentaries or to kind of telling narratives of the city of San Francisco and moving out past that and moving out past mistakes as well or exposing them. And we have like many different we have kind of an interesting history here in San Francisco, even though it's short compared to the East Coast. There's quite a bit that's happened over the years, and so we're documenting all aspects of that.
All right, well, that is a pretty important archive. And could you describe the typical visitor for this section of the library and what they're looking for, maybe what they're interested in?
I wouldn't say we have a variety of typical visitors. We have definitely what we call building researchers. So folks want to kind of do the genealogy of their home. So they come in and look at different records and photographs of their home. So we have building researchers. Then we have genealogists who are interested in like if their family passed through San Francisco at some point. So there's always a little stop here in the city. Then we have students from elementary school to folks doing their dissertation. So that kind of varies on their amount of time that they spend here, but they're kind of deep in research, as well as scholars using all the different archival collections. And I think I hit, and then, there's just those that are curious about San Francisco. So that would probably be our last genre of patron.
Awesome. So it sounds like just like San Francisco, there's quite the diverse groups of visitors here. And what are some of the most significant objects in the archive?
Most significant objects.
Or interesting.
Interesting. Well, we have some rare things. For example, we have a 1878 panorama that was taken by Edward Muybridge. So there are only 3 in the world, and we have one of those. So that's a significant view of the city, but just as a unique item. And then we have, I feel like I mean, I love all my children, so everything feels significant. But we have, I think, kind of our maps are significant because they kind of show the changing landscape over time of San Francisco. And then, of course, working with the photographs, I'm a little partial to those. Yeah, so. And there are about 2 million photos, so I won't really say which one's my favorite.
That is a lot of photos. Um, and could you show us some of those photographs from the 1906 earthquake and fire?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Well, we're back. We're looking at these exciting things. And could you show us the photographs from the 1906 earthquake and fire?
Yes, I can. I'm not going to show you all of them because we have about 5,000 of those. So let's just do a couple.
Okay. That seems like it'll work too.
Okay, so we'll start with we're starting with the fire. So here's just a little panorama of the city with the fire. And then, so you can see kind of the fire raged for 3 days. And this is downtown. So that was on Market Street between 3rd and 4th. So very close to actually only a block away from SF MoMA. And here's another little one. And all of these are gelatin silver prints, so kind of printed in 1906 as well. So this was a very well photographed event. Everyone kind of came out with their cameras, amateur as well as professional, to just, capture the scene. This is the Call building, so this is all downtown. This photograph is by Willard Warden, who is a local photographer during that time. Here's another one, again, of downtown. So you get the idea of what's happening. Some of these we had received over the years, where this is from Chinatown, but it had been mounted on in a scrapbook, so it had been removed. This one's actually from the top of kind of a popular destination in San Francisco, Dolores Park. So this is Mission High School. This is where By-Rite Creamery is now, but you get the idea. So this is what the park looked like. So this is all downtown with the whole fire raging.
Wow, there's a carriage going through. Is that a carriage? A carriage
Yes.
going through Dolores Park. So
Yeah.
a little bit different from
Yeah,
today.
yeah. And you can see the tents are already starting to pop up because people were displaced from their homes. So after the fire was put out and the earthquake, then folks didn't have homes, so they started putting camps and refugee camps in all the parks. So about right here behind the photographer is where the gold fire hydrant is that saved the city. Yeah, so that's kind of that view. And
Could you also tell us how did that golden fire hydrant save the city? It's just
well, I wasn't there myself, but supposedly it was like kind of one of the last spots that had the reservoir of water. They did the dynamite on Van Ness, and then that one kind of helped save the Mission District. So, yep. And then there's just more and more photos. I think that seems like a good amount.
wow.
As a sample set.
Yeah, those photos are incredible. I mean, I can't imagine living through that. You must actually think the world might be ending with the just smoke from all over, just in the sky, covering the city. Could you show us any objects from the archive that were rescued from the fires?
Yes. Here's an example of one. This is a 1905 Sanborn map. So I'm going to open it so you can see the burn marks. So it had been singed on the sides here, as you can see. Wow. So this map is part of it's called Fire Insurance Maps, and they were put together by a private company. So the map itself, the base map, was made in 1899. And what they would do is go and I'll get to so you can see all the. So it's different sections of the city, and they would go building by building to say what kind of building it was, how the structure was made, what kind of business was there, or if it was a residence or that type of thing. But you can see there's like little singe marks here, and then like chunks of it were taken out from that had been chipped away. But you can see, little fire marks here.
Wow. Where was this during the fire when it happened?
Supposedly in the old city hall, but since this was over 100 years ago, some of the storylines get there's urban legends.
Details get messy.
Yes. So, but we have a whole set of series like these, but most of our records were lost, the county records, and so a lot of things have been recreated over time or re-recorded, or some things were saved, and a lot of things were, like we lost our whole main library was lost in the fire, so... Yeah, so that was our old main library at the time was in City Hall, and that had burned. So, but then after the earthquake and fire, it was a big deal across the U.S., and different folks sent funds, and as well as like in our own library records, different libraries across the U.S. sent us books and stuff to rebuild the collections.
That's beautiful, actually. It's kind of the whole nation coming together to help this one part of it that had been so deeply affected by this fire. Yeah. Is it possible that these objects are now more valuable because they were burnt, because they're like somehow now marked by this historical event?
Well, I think it kind of changes it as an object, as an artifact. It kind of has the duality of still being a map and like the use of it while still being an object of fire. So I think there's kind of those two things going on. And then that it survived as opposed to not being here at all. So, yeah. But I think it just changes itself as an object. It doesn't maybe increase its value or anything like that. So, yeah.
All right, yeah, that's and just another question relating to this. So for every one of these that survived, do you have any estimate on how many books were burned and are gone?
From the earthquake and fire?
Yeah, from the earth, not like in the whole world, just from the earthquake and fire.
I don't have a number. I don't, but I am a librarian, so I would know how to look it up effectively.
There you go. All right. And so speaking of you being a librarian, what for you is the political and social role of libraries, and specifically this one in particular?
Okay. Well, first I'll kind of speak to the archives. I feel like, so the archives for the city and county of San Francisco were kind of the keepers of the city history. So I think for that, in regards to socially, that kind of allows folks to get to know their city, and especially like if somebody's new to the area, they can kind of explore the history of their neighborhood or their community and kind of be more involved that way by knowing the history. So we have that history here. And I know folks enjoy looking at old photos, kind of see what streets used to look like, that type of thing. And then in regards to kind of like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's political, but just kind of allowing being the main branch as well as all of our branch libraries kind of being community spaces. So I guess you could take that to a political level if you wanted to, but kind of having a free space with free information and a gathering space. So that could just be community building, and then political activism can come through from that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It could also be like people gather and make terrariums together in a library program, and maybe they'll just enjoy meeting their neighbor more, and their quality of life will improve because they know their neighbor now and they'll say hi to them. So, so it can kind of, sometimes the impact of our space doesn't necessarily, is a hash mark or something that is immediately like can see because that person's physically visited the library, but there's ramifications later on that can have that social community building or, political activity. So those are my thoughts.
I like that. It's kind of like on the surface, it's just might be sort of this place with all this information and knowledge, but then the communities come together, and that kind of has like a ripple effect on communities and everything. So that's awesome. Could you describe the library's policies regarding how visitors are able to interact with historical materials, such as the ones in this room?
Sure. So we don't. What we do is we have everything available in one department. So it's called the San Francisco History Center. So we kind of keep everything together that way. And we kind of follow some of the rules, best practices that are used for special collections. So we ask folks to only use pencils because if they get really excited with their highlighter, they could damage a document. So a pencil, at least we can erase that. And we ask folks to leave their bags so we can, so it's just they come in without their bags. And we ask folks to, handle materials gently and carefully, and, ideally not to sneeze on things or things like that. And we also, if they're working with photographs, they'll wear gloves because we all have oils on our fingers. So the oils would go onto the print, and then that's kind of a permanent marker. So we try to kind of follow procedures and best practices to preserve the documents so that the next person who would like to use them can kind of still have that same experience. So, yeah. But everyone and anyone's allowed to come into the space and use it. You don't have to have a library card. You don't have to be a resident of San Francisco. Anyone and everyone. So there's that. It's exciting.
That is very exciting that anybody can just come in here, and as long as they follow the proper procedures to not mess up the books forever, that anybody can really come and look at the archives. How do you balance a desire to accommodate the visitors' needs and interests with concerns about the safety of objects like this?
Oh, sure. So if, for example, if they wanted to look at photographs and there's a stack of photos, then we have, I don't give them like 1,000 photos at once, that you kind of get one folder at a time, and we ask folks to keep it in the original order and that type of thing. So we try to create access, but it is with some, white glove handling. And we also have been digitizing materials as we go along, and that also provides even a wider availability around the world. So we have about 45,000 photographs that have been digitized and about 2 million pages of documents through like all of the different types of platforms that we have. So, so for example, these maps that we looked at here, the 1905 Sanborns, those have been digitized. So people can use them and interact with them how they like. So that's a little bit of both.
Wow, okay. That's great. So that means everybody can really kind of still have access to it as long as they follow a few rules. So again, so they don't destroy all of these like historically significant documents. And how important do you think tolerance is in connection to culture and shared resources like the ones that the library system procures and shares?
It's That's an interesting question. And what do you mean by tolerance?
Tolerance, I think, probably because we've heard about reports of some people would try to censor like books in the library and even like burn them. Like I heard a few years ago or something like that. There was even some people were burning newspapers in in a garbage can over here, and then everybody had to evacuate, and just that kind of arson and all this kind of people just information and kind of the relationship between that.
Okay. I think in regards to for archives for here in the History Center and our collection is we try to round out all sides of the story. So ideally, so for example, so we have mayoral papers. So each mayor now, based on the Sunshine Ordinance Act, when they leave, they give the archives their mayoral papers. So we have the mayoral papers for Alioto, who was mayor in the 1970s. So we have like the mayoral perspective on events and that type of thing. And I was recently pulling those papers for a Black Panther party project. And so there was kind of one way of a representation of the Black Panther Party would be through the mayoral papers, which was a little bit more under the category of crime or violence. But then I'm also working with Glide Church Archives, and we're going to get those archives, and they were in partnership with and supported the Black Panther Party. So when you now will pull those archives together, you'll have two perspectives. So you'll kind of have that mayoral government perspective, and then a community group in partnership with another community of building it up. So now we can have, so I guess in regards to tolerance, it's more about making sure that there's both sides of the conversation represented in the archives. So that's kind of that angle. So it's the opposite of censorship. It's really more increasing perspectives.
Wow. So it sounds like the library does its best so that when you research a topic, you're not just getting a single view, but instead of kind of a unbiased whole thing that you might not get if you use like the internet or something else. So that's a really cool way to, promote the libraries as a place where you can really get everything, the facts, no fake news. And is there anything else you would like to add? Any other sort of anything else about the library, about your role here, about the history, fire, books, public knowledge, any of those things? Any thoughts?
Well, those are a lot of topics. Let's see. I guess I do believe that every San Francisco citizen should have a library card, and that they would really be a citizen if they had one. But not just to physically have one, like, oh, it looks cute on my keychain thing, but actually use the resources. So that's kind of like when I'm in conversation, whether it's with my Lyft driver or, shopping or whatever, library comes in, and I do ask if folks have their library cards. Because I want them to use the library and make it applicable to them. And I think it is applicable to everyone, whether they like stream media or come in to like use, decorate their homes with, photos of the Golden Gate Bridge, or use the maps, or, go to a lap sit, with their toddler. So I just want people to use the library. That's my main thing. Fires, I don't know. I don't really have an addition about fires or any destruction of materials or anything like that. So I think those are my main things to share.
That's great, because I think you're right. I think a lot of people just, consider the library just like, oh, you know, those books. But I mean, there's there's archives here. There's like a area like with like the newest technology, 3D printers. Like, where else can you get 3D printers, streaming media, and like the archives from like burnt maps all in one place? So I mean, the library certified. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for answering our questions, for showing us these amazing artifacts from the past, and just for being an all-around great interviewee.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.